Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Up. I'm your host, Gamer K. The first official week of spring has finally hit in Canada, and it feels no different. While other places in the world, they're getting their pools started or getting swimsuit season ready, we're still stuck in the cold. I mean, it's not as bad as usual, so that's a plus. But kind of fits for what I'm talking about this week. DLCs. What's made them from adding adventure to the game, adding extra to the game, to being a cash grab to get our money for pointless stuff? So, that's what this topic is. This is my very first DLC review. So, just as an introduction to what I'm doing, for my DLC reviews, I will be tackling certain DLC storylines or added missions added to a game, and I will be going over them in great detail, talking about what they bring to the game, the story, what they do differently that's aside from the other game, because that's what a DLC should be. Something that sticks to the story, but adds something new that you can't do in the main game. So for that reason, story DLCs are all I'm doing for these videos. I'm not doing skins. I'm not doing weapons. Because, let's face it, if I did, my channel would become Overwatch cosplay ideas. Actually, for my first Overwatch joke, it should be called Cosplay Ideas, the video game. I think if I hit like over 100 subscribers, I'll go in depth of my feelings for Overwatch, because I may make a good number of jokes about them throughout my videos. I love them. I love the characters, but the game, So, back towards my main topic, my first DLC review. So I figured I'd tackle something that has to do with, well, coincidentally, it's still cold out, so why not tackle something that's chilly? Yeah, I bet you forgot this game existed, huh? But as you can see, just for, that is Robin Lord Taylor's autograph. At the time I met him, I didn't have Gotham on DVD, so since Penguin was in this game, the first time Penguin appeared in the series, and I'm not including Arkham City, but technically this is where he first appeared, I got him to sign it. So, let's continue the cold with this frigid DLC, Cold Cold Heart. Now, this DLC follows strongly to the Batman animated series episode where it introduces Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze has been one of my favorite Batman villains for a good number of years. There's been different interpretations of him, but the main interpretation is that he's not really a villain. He's played as a villain at the start when he's revealed, but as we learn his story, we start to sympathize with him greatly. And this DLC does it unbelievably well. The way they were able to, the Arkham series kind of retells Batman a little bit and puts their own little spin on the characters, but the way they keep the origin of these characters so close to the comics and to the source material, I love it. So we start the DLC about, if I'm thinking about it, a week after the end game of Arkham Origins, where it was Christmas time. And Bruce Wayne is having a benefit at his mansion for Ferris Boyle, who's been given the Humanitarian of the Year award. And for Batman fans who are watching this, you may know who this is. But let's continue. So basically, there's Mr. Freeze comes in with some of his men, and thank God they're not wearing hockey attire like in Batman and Robin. Hey, at least there's not as many ice puns in this game. Thankfully. Unless a lot of players recorded themselves playing the game and made the jokes themselves. Kudos! So basically, Freeze kidnaps Ferris Boyle, and we need to get to the Batcave in order to get our equipment, because we're playing as Bruce Wayne for the first time in any of the games other than Arkham City. So, we have to fight some bad guys. And, you know, you get to the Batcave, and the glue grenade that we got in the main game is no longer usable. And I do like the way they subtly say that you can't use it. Like, the adhesive wasn't stable, so it disintegrated. I love it when they get rid of a certain weapon or they get rid of a certain ability. They don't do the whole, you know what, this is a new story, we're not using it, it's deleted. No, they come up with an actual context of why we can't use it anymore. That I really love in games, and I really wish other games would be this in-depth detail about why you can't use certain weapons or abilities. I think it would work well and give more stability in the games. But I digress. So we get into our bat suit, we fight the bad guys, and we find out we gotta find Freeze at GothCorp, which kind of sounds like a Spencer's and Hot Topic spinoff, but for goth people. But I digress. Let's continue. So we find Mr. Freeze there, and also we find Penguin there. Then we are blocked off, and we need a cryo drill in order to break the wall that's blocking us from getting to Mr. Freeze. So we pretty much did that thing in video games where the boss will create this magical barrier or this obstacle that the boss suddenly went through, and yet we can't get through unless we find certain stuff. Are you kidding? I mean, yeah, at least it's not bullshit. At least we only need to get like 2 parts. And we go to the My Alibi Club in order to get the part, and then we go to, if I recall, man, I'm having a hard time remembering this. But overall, we do get the drill, and we do more backstory for Mr. Freeze in this game. Also, I gotta say, through the whole map that we get in Arkham Origins, I mean, yeah, I know a lot of DLC kind of sections you off in certain areas on the map in order to make the story work more. We don't even get 1/2 of the map. Okay, here's the map. We get this small little sliver to play in. That's it. Which is okay. I mean, it does make the side missions a little more manageable and not as irritating to find. I'll get to the side missions in a minute. So after we pretty much got our asses frozen a little bit, we need a new suit in order to combat Freeze, and because in GothCorp, I mean, yeah, once you do a couple fight sections and then some stealth takedown sections, we are suffering from the extreme cold that's going on in GothCorp, and also a whole bunch of people, GothCorp employees, and a whole bunch of cops outside have been frozen. So after we handle all that, we leave GothCorp in order to get our new thermal suit. So it's pretty much the bat suit if it looked like a giant Canadian plush coat. Yeah, plush coat. That's what I'm going with. But it looks so badass. The mouth is covered, giving this mask sound to it when he talks. I love that they do that. Like, they didn't just have his voice come through the thing. It's covered in a heavy padded armor, so it actually sounds like he's talking through heavy padding. I love that little bit of detail they added, because most games, when you're wearing like a helmet or something, their voice isn't muffled. It sounds like they're talking normally. Imagine if I had a full suit of armor night helmet on, and I sounded like this, and it wasn't muffled because my voice was covered. Video games do that, and it's annoying. So this little added detail is well appreciated. So for the suit, it's not that basic, it's just a cool suit. No, this actually gives us access to a heat ability, where when we get our meter up, we can use it to turn the heat on and pretty much go heat blast. And okay, yeah, we don't get to shoot fireballs, but yeah, it greatly increases our strength, and it makes it hot. Not to mention, we can add this to our batarangs, too, for certain tactical attacks, like knocking stalactites down from the ceiling. So after we get that, we go into the lab where Freeze was working, and that's where we learn the truth about how for people who don't know Batman stuff, like legitimate old Batman lore, I'm about to tell you something. So, Ferris is not the humanitarian we think he is. Why is it everyone who gets Humanitarian of the Year awards in superhero shows somehow are evil behind the scenes? So, yeah, maybe people should be on the lookout for that. So, Ferris contracted Freeze to developing cryo weapons for him. In exchange, Freeze's wife, Nora Freeze, has this rare genetic disease, and it's killing her. So, in order to make sure she lives, he puts her in cryostasis until he develops a cure. Having GothCorp's resources, he decides to work on his cure at the same time as working on the weapons. However, Boyle isn't carrying out his end of the bargain, so Freeze cuts off the weapon supply and starts working on the cure himself. Ferris finds out and tries to pull the plug on Nora, and in an accident, a cryo tank explodes, and that's how Mr. Freeze becomes the blue skin, his ice in his veins. A guard is affected by this too, and Ferris manages to get away, and they wheel off Nora. And after witnessing the guard die after he left the sub-zero temperatures, Freeze decides to build a suit in order to get his wife back. This is what I'm talking about, how I love Mr. Freeze as a character. Pretty much in every single version of him, except for the Batman animated series and a little bit of Gotham a little bit, all he's doing is wanting to save his dying wife. That is beautiful for me. And it's gorgeous and it's tragic because of what's going on with him. He just wanted to save his wife, and this corporate creep is using him to make weapons. So after finding out all the evidence, we send all this evidence to Jim Gordon, and then we go for the final showdown with Mr. Freeze. And just like... You know what? I should really do a top 13 video game boss list. Like, not the villain in general, but the bosses. Because Mr. Freeze's boss battle from Arkham City will be, like, number 2 on that list indefinitely. Just because of how interesting it was. And it's pretty interesting here, too. In this one. We don't really get to attack him per se, head-to-head. We fight a whole bunch of his goons as well, and so first there's a cutscene where we explain that we have the evidence on Boyle, so he will pay for what he's done, and Freeze won't have it. He just wants his wife back. And I love that about the character. So for the battle, we pretty much have to release the cryo energy from 3 tanks, and then we have to, in like a freaking snowstorm mist, we have to fight the goons as well as fight Freeze, and it's done very well. It's not as epic or strategic as the boss battle in Arkham City, but I still give this one a good rating, this boss battle. Maybe a 6 out of 10, 7 if I'm being generous. And at the end of the battle, Ferris uses the gun on Batman to freeze him a little bit and starts hitting. And at this point, because of the cryostasis is gone, Nora's is almost near death with becoming unthawed, and Ferris could have saved her. He just starts beating on Freeze, and we have to do a small QTE thing where we have to push the button so hard to break out of the ice and knock him out. And then in the end, we do save Nora Freeze. Like, we restart the cryo process, and the whole thing just ends with Freeze reaching his hand out to his wife, and this moment. Every time I see a Nora and Victor Freeze moment, it's a great villain. I am glad they went this route for a DLC, because Freeze comes in Arkham City, and then he's in the DLC of Arkham Knight, which I will get to next month. And yeah, he only appears in the 3 games, 2 of which is in the DLC, and it's done beautifully. And this DLC in particular, they do his backstory perfectly. They do it with all respect to the character. They don't make him into the villain. They don't twist it. They go exactly the route it should go, keeping tradition to the story. Now let's get to the side missions, and sadly there's 2, and they're not good ones. They're not really story based. They're, I would say, achievement based, like just to get achievements and everything. One of them is Anarchy. I'm talking about the character here, not actual Anarchy. Anarchy got caught in a side mission in the main game, but some of his followers are still around, and they have spray tags all over the area. So you have to scan all the Anarchy signs, which is pretty much a red A with a circle around it. What does this unlock? Don't remember, don't really care. It was a pain in the ass to do, and it's not that fun. Not even. The second one is more related to unthawing the victims who were frozen by criminals using the cryo weapons. Yeah, so you pretty much got to find the people frozen and unfrost them by holding the X button down. Yeah. That's it. But overall, the DLC, the story does keep true Batman tradition. It does hold up to the game standards in any way. It's kind of a short DLC, clocking in at maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours if I'm being generous. And so, a little extra information. This DLC came out on April 2014, which is October, November, December. About 7 months after the game's initial release in October of 2013. And right now, if you have Arkham Origins right now, the DLC costs at most $9.99. That, because it has been a good number of years, so it has dropped a lot. So for $9.99, it's a good DLC. It's a fun story DLC. I wish they did something more with it. But overall, this DLC is worth the admission alone of $9.99. It's worth the price, and you get to play through one of the most ingenious and cunning back and heart-wrenching stories in the Batman universe. And the title Cold Cold Heart really keeps in touch with the character. Not just Victor's cold heart for being Mr. Freeze, but Boyle's cold heart for being a heartless, cold-hearted man. So I love how they turned it around for the story. So the title is perfect. That's one thing I really love about a DLC. The title, because it gets you interested in the DLC. It's the first thing you hear about it. So, if I were to rate, that's what I'll be doing for all my DLCs. I'll be rating them on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being absolute garbage. It's not worth the price. It's not worth the price at all. It's just a bad DLC. And 10 being absolutely perfect. I don't think I'll have an absolute perfect DLC. So, GamerK's final verdict for Batman Arkham Origins Cold Cold Heart DLC earns a surprisingly... I'm being a little generous. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. A 7 mainly because for this kind of DLC, it stuck well to the story. It didn't add a whole bunch of pointless side stuff at you, but it needed some interesting side stuff. Like, we could have had some more villains pop up a little bit, like give a little foreshadowing for what Arkham Origins and Arkham City already had, and play off that a little bit. Would have worked. Like, maybe have Zsasz come in, something like that. Have Riddler do a couple extra puzzles in this area. It would have been fun. But overall, the DLC is good, and it's a good start for my DLC series. Let's see, what am I doing next week? I'm sure I'll remember soon enough. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining in on this freezing review. Like, comment, subscribe down below, please. And like I said before, if I get up to 100 subscribers, I will do a video about my feelings of Overwatch. Maybe I'll do a top list for Overwatch of some sort. Maybe in the future. But coming up next week, I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to go through my my list to see what I'm doing next week. So, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it warms up soon, because I'm really getting tired of the cold right now. This is Gamer K, logging out.